Forget everything you know about standard hero boards. Everyone thinks they know the limits of the deck until the evil heroes take the stage. Today, I'm going to show you how to unleash a board that makes standard hero setups look like child's play. I put together a tight list with one copy of each key card, and I'll walk you through everything from the basic combos to the advanced plays that will leave your opponent speechless. We'll break down the effects as we go, so you can see exactly why this engine is the secret weapon your deck has been missing. So when you look at this board, you should be already familiar with it. If this is the first time that you are watching my video, please make sure to check out my previous videos, because I have already talked about those combos from scratch in detail. Today I specifically want to talk about the evil hero engine, because we never get a chance to talk about it fully, so that's why time is essence. We have evil hero Adusted Gold in our hand. Most of the evil hero monsters are fiend monsters. Adusted Gold is basically one of our main searchers, just like elemental hero Stratos. These are the cards that you can search from your deck, as you can see. In order to do our combos, we need Dead and Prison in our field. Unfortunately, we have already used our normal summon, so that's why we need an alternative way to special summon him to the field, and Evil Assault is going to help us for that. So that's why we are searching for Evil Assault. Now, in order to activate Evil Assault, we need to discard one card from our hand as a cost, and that is going to be Denier. It can be any card. It doesn't have to be a hero monster like Vision Hero Ferris, so it's easier to activate this card. Now we are going to activate it, send Denier to the graveyard, and we can either add Dead at Prison to our hand or special summon to the field. We need to use his effect, so that's why we need him on the field, and that's why I am going to special summon him. So once you activate Evil Assault, we will be locked into the hero monsters. However, since we already have Verte Anaconda in our field, we will be able to use his effect in order to summon DPE later. When Dead and Prison is normal or special summoned to the field, it doesn't trigger any effect like Vision Hero Vion. However, its first effect is quite similar to Vision Hero Vion. Basically, we are going to send a hero monster from our deck to the graveyard, and once that resolves, we will be able to use this card as fusion material for any substitute. By the way, sending a hero monster from our deck to the graveyard is a cost, so that means our opponent cannot use Ash Blossom. Also, even if they use Imperm, the milling part will not be negated. Okay, we will still be able to send a hero monster to the graveyard. But the second part, which includes fusion material as substitution, unfortunately we won't be able to use that part. Now, what we want to send to the graveyard is Evil Hero Sinister Necrom, because we are going to use his effect and banish him, so that we can special summon another evil hero monster, which is going to be Evil Hero Infernal Rider. Now, when this card is normal or special summoned, we can search for Dark Fusion from our deck or graveyard to the hand. At the moment, we obviously want to search Dark Fusion from our deck, so we are going to add it to our hand. Now, we have a bunch of evil hero monsters in our deck. One of them is Evil Hero Neos Lord, the other one is Darkest Night, which is you're already familiar with, and the other one is Inferno Wing Backfire. We have also Malicious Bane, but unfortunately I didn't have enough space, so I couldn't be able to include it here. But we don't need him actually for our combo guide. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to fusion summon Inferno Wing. The summoning conditions are 1 elemental hero Avian or 1 elemental hero Burstinatrix plus 1 hero monster. So you might be wondering, wait a second, we don't run Avian or Burstinatrix, so how are we going to fusion summon her? Well, that's why Dead and Prison effect is really crucial in order to fusion summon her, because this card will be considered as either Avian or Burstinatrix. It is going to substitute for that. But all other fusion monsters must be correct. When we look at summoning conditions one more time, we only need a hero monster. So we are going to use Infernal Rider for that. And now we can activate Dark Fusion. So now we are going to fusion summon Inferno Wing by using our evil hero monsters. Now, when we special summon her, we can add 1 Dark Fusion or 1 card that matches it from our deck or graveyard. So these are the cards that we can search from our graveyard or deck. You have a lot of options, but what we really want to search from our deck is Dark Supremacy, because this card has an Omni-Negate effect, just like Contested Chaos, and since we are going first, we can search this card and set it to our field. In some occasions, you might consider searching for Dark Contact, and use his fusion summoning effect so that you can fusion summon 1 more evil hero monster to your field. But for the moment, I'm going to search for Dark Supremacy. Now I'm going to set it. When we look at Inferno Wing, unfortunately it doesn't have any negation or something like that. It has an effect which is helpful in battle phase, but when you're going first, this effect will be useless. So when we look at Dark Supremacy one more time, it says target face-up cards your opponent controls up to the number of Dark Fusion and spells that mention it in your graveyard. Negate their effects until the end of this turn. So that means when we look at our graveyard, we control Dark Fusion and we also have Evil Assault. That means we can target 2 cards on the field and negate their effects. Why Evil Assault is also considered? Because as you can see, it mentions the word of Dark Fusion in its text. Now, from our graveyard, we can activate the secondary effect of Infernal Rider. So basically discard Searcher's Super Polymerization from our deck and set it to our field. Banish a couple of cards from our graveyard, including itself. So we need to banish 4 additional cards. I prefer banish cards that are not hero monsters. So Crossship is going to be 1, Tugaris is going to be 2, Ash Blossom is going to be 3, and if you like, you can banish something like Wonder Driver. Now we can set it. There is one specific thing that I need to mention. When we set Super Polymerization, until the end of our opponent's next turn, we can actually fusion summon even evil hero monsters with the help of Super Polymerization. Normally, all evil hero monsters must be special summoned with Dark Fusion, but with the help of Infernal Rider, we ignore that summoning condition. But keep it in your mind, when you activate Super Polymerization, you can only special summon hero monsters in the next turn. You cannot special summon generic non-hero fusion monsters from your extra deck if you're planning to do that. Unfortunately, that won't work. Before we end our turn, we can activate EN Shuffle from our graveyard in order to return Thunder Giant and Aqua Dolphin. So we are going to draw a card. Luckily we drew Dark Contact, but I'm not going to activate it because I'm going to special summon DPE with the help of Verte Anaconda. We are not going to summon anything anymore, so that's why it's time to resolve his effect. If you remember, I had Denier in my hand, so unfortunately I need to send 2 copies of Malicious to the graveyard, but it's not a big deal because what's important is summoning DPE to our field. Now, before we end our turn, let's check our field. We have Sunrise, we have Verte Anaconda. Actually, we can destroy it because we don't need them. Let's just do that with DPE. And we can resurrect DPE. The reason why I prefer destroying Anaconda is because we have Favorite Contact, which is set. So I need an extra space for that fusion summoning. We have Mask Change in our field, so that means we are going to send Infernal Devices and special summon Darklow. We have Dark Supremacy, which means we can negate 2 cards on the field. And we have Super Polymerization, and I'll try to show you how we can use it in a minute. So let's just end our turn. So during the draw phase, I'm going to activate Mask Change, send Infernal Devices, and special summon Darklow. Now during the standby phase, I'm going to activate DPE's effect so that we can bring him back to the field. Now, I'm going to activate Dark Supremacy, for example, and target this card, and we have an option to select another card, and I'm going to select this fusion card. As you can see, both effects are negated. So before my opponent ends his main phase, I'm going to activate Favorite Contact in order to fusion summon Elemental Hero Shining Neon's Wingman. You have also other options as well, but first we need to summon this guy. Let's put it right here. See, that's why we have destroyed Verte Anaconda. Now I'm going to resolve Shining Neon's Wingman's effect. And we can destroy up to 3 cards on the field because we control 3 different attributes on the field. We have Light, we have Dark, and because we have Infernal Wind, which is Fire, that makes 3. So I'm going to destroy all of 3 these cards. Now, before my opponent ends his turn, I'm going to show you how we can activate Super Polymerization. As you know, we need at least 1 card in our hand, so actually activating EN Shuffle's effect and drawing 1 card from our deck was literally helping us to play Super Polymerization, because we need to send the cost, which is going to be unfortunately Dark Contact. So since I want to use my opponent's master for fusion summoning and get rid of it, I'm going to fusion summon Evil Hero Neos Lord. So the summoning conditions are one Elemental Hero Neos, we don't have that, or one Fusion Master that mentions it. We control Shining Neos Wingman, so basically it mentions Elemental Hero Neos, so that's why we are going to use this card. And the second condition is one Effect Master on the field. So that's why I can use this card and this card in order to fusion summon Neos Lord. So normally it's not ideal to get rid of Shining Neos Wingman because this is a really strong master. You already saw that it had 7k attack points, cannot be destroyed by card effects, cannot be returned to the extra deck, so many things. But sometimes your opponent's master can be really annoying, so it's always a better option to get rid of that monster. And also Neos Lord is not a bad card to have it on the field. Not only it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects, but also it is a special effect which can steal one of our opponent's masters, just like Brain Control, except we take control of that master permanently. So when you special summon him, you can immediately steal a master, or if our opponents send a master to the graveyard, we can use this effect again, but it has to be once per turn. So it doesn't mean that we can resolve this effect twice in the same turn. Now, from our graveyard, we can activate Evil Assault and Dark Supremacy, for example. We can banish Evil Assault in order to get Dark Fusion from our graveyard to our hands. And if you like, you can play Dark Fusion, for example, and special summon something like Darkest Night, or it can be Malicious Bane, but again, I don't have it in my extra deck right now. So the summoning conditions are one Fiend Master and one Warrior Master. So for example, you can use Inferno Wing and Sunrise. Now, we can also activate Dark Supremacy from our graveyard. We can banish these cards, and we can actually return cards from either our graveyard or banishment zone. You can see we have a lot of cards that we have used as a resource. So it is quite beneficial to refresh our cards and use them in the next turn. Just pick whatever you want or whatever you need. For example, I chose these 5 cards. So it has quite a nice synergy with Infernal Rider. You know, this card banishes card from our graveyard, and Dark Supremacy just returns them back to our deck, which is really cool. And that's pretty much our end board.